I learned a lot of lessons in my 20s that I wish I could have told my younger self. So I hope that in this video, you'll be able to take away some of my lessons and mistakes along the way and apply them to where you are at the moment. So my 20s was a very interesting period. I went through a lot of self-discovery and self-reflection. I took a lot of risk with my career. I moved from a career in banking, which is very traditional and very stable, to digital marketing, which is so new at the time. I took a risk with where I lived. I moved across the Atlantic from New York City, where I had all of my life, all of my friends, to London, where I didn't know many people at the time. And I took a risk with who I fell in love with. I met a guy who I met 6 months into my studying abroad in London. And now 14 years later, we're happily married with a toddler daughter. So I guess that part worked out for itself. However, what I learned was that all these risk-taking allow me to learn from the lessons and the mistakes along the way, which was so transformative for me in my 20s. And I'll share more about these lessons later. Hi there, welcome back to my channel. I'm Lori Wang, and I'm a digital and social media strategist and also creator in the trenches, learning and sharing my lessons along the way on this channel. So if that's what you're interested in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the notification bell so you get notified every time I release a new video. So life lesson number 1, choose work that feels like play. So when I was in college, and that's university for those of you in the UK, I remember everyone made such a big deal out of what major that you choose, because that's apparently is permanent forever. That's going to be burned into your self-identity. And I remember how it was like a life-changing decision to make those choices. Although now looking back, I think how silly it was, because there were so many things in my degree that I never actually used in real life. But then when I got to college, I realized the first major that I chose, which is actually in pre-med. And for those of you who are from the US, you probably know how intense pre-med could be. But it's not so much the coursework that I was actually scared of. It was something else, and it's something so simple and fundamental. And I realized that I'm actually really squeamish with blood. And to be honest, if you're going to be going to the medical field, you better make sure you actually like seeing the sight of blood, or at least not being afraid of it. And actually, I remember when I was switching majors at the time, I was thinking quite hard about marketing, because it's one of the fields that I was actually a little bit curious about. But you know what? The practicality kicked in again. And I remember I switched to economics, because economics is one of those majors or degrees that you can pretty much do anything with. Go into law, go into banking, all these traditional industries that are considered safe and stable. I unfortunately was listening to what my parents wanted to set out for me. And they wanted me to have a nice, stable job that pays well on a regular basis, and something that they consider to be a job for life, which I see where they're coming from. And I think it's a generational thing where they were first generation immigrants as well to the US. So in their eyes, a very safe, stable job is the best way to go, because stability is something that they never had before. And lo and behold, my economics degree led me into the banking industry eventually. And I found my dream job at the time, which was working with one of the major investment banks. I learned that during this time that quarter-life crisis is actually a real thing. And especially in my 20s, when the financial crisis had just happened. I remember jumping into an industry where everything was turned upside down. And I didn't really know exactly what I was working for anymore, because it was during this time when the financial benefit of being in a very well-respected industry has gone away. And then you're left with the questions of, well, what is it that I actually want to work on then? What is it that I'm actually passionate about? But the other issue with that is my whole life and my whole career, I've spent building towards this moment. So I didn't really know exactly where to look elsewhere. I didn't really know what other things I'm passionate about. And I find that a lot of the advice out there that are talking about go find your passion, it's not something that you just find magically. And what I learned from that whole experience is that you need to actually go out and do things, try new things. And eventually, it will actually be something that you'll find within yourself that you never knew was there. So what happened with me was that during this period, I was questioning what other industries could I actually get involved with. And I was just curious. My curiosity actually led me to discover a whole new industry in digital marketing that at the time it didn't actually exist. And I think that itself is another reason where I think in your 20s, you have this amazing opportunity to just take risks. And I feel that my career finally took off when I was actually working something that I enjoyed. Doesn't matter or not how much it was paying at the time, but later on, all of this is irrelevant. Once you like what you do and then you become the top of your industry, that's where you can ultimately see the successes of who you can become. And I think that's something that we forget, is that when you follow the money rather than your passions, you just be churning out the same type of work over and over again without having that spur of passion, the inspiration, the innovation that's needed to become the best of who you are in that industry. So if I was to sum up this first lesson, it would be don't stifle your dreams for practicality. And don't make that same mistake that I made. Find work that gives you the most inspiration, the most growth, the most relationships that you can build that ultimately will help you in your career, in your business in the long term. So now is the time to try new ideas, new careers, because that's when you can experiment and learn from it. And knowing what is that you like, that you want to do, and what is it that you don't want to do as well. And my lesson number 2 is embrace patience. Consistency is the key to success to everything. So here's the problem. We now live in a world where there's Amazon deliveries on Prime, there's overnight successes, there's the real-time technology that's happening all the time, pinging you and notifying you about what's going on. And there's lots of instant gratification through, let's say, social media and also the online world as a whole. So no one likes to wait around for things anymore. And I think this is actually one of the reasons where it prevented me from achieving the results that I could have had if I waited and been patient for the long term in my 20s. I lack patience because I get easily bored. And it's still something that I'm working on right now all the time. My personality is always very fast paced and I want things to happen right now, right here. And especially in my 20s, that was a period where I wasn't ready to wait. So what happened is that I would get easily bored and I would lose patience on what I was working on. This was the case when I was working in a corporate career, also later on when I was working for myself. In both cases, I definitely should embrace that lesson more in the sense that I need to be patient and seeing that consistent action through, because that's where you start seeing results in the long term. But the issue is that we're so trained by the modern world of the instant gratification that we don't have the patience left anymore to actually just wait it out and to just keep on putting the work. And I think that's something that I want to tell not only my younger self, but even something that I'm reminding myself right now in my 30s. But I finally started seeing the results and the momentum once I started to embrace the process and to learn to love the process. So what I realized is that as I learned to love the process, I get to enjoy it every step of the way. And no longer I'll be happy when I reach X result, but rather it's loving that struggle, learning from it, and then ultimately being able to just have fun along the way. And to be honest, if you choose work that feels like play to you, you'll learn to love the process anyway. So the key lesson here is that embrace the patience, because patience is very much a rarity these days. And if you have that, you will be the one that really stand out in the long term. And also, ultimately, love the process, because the process is what's really fun to get you from here to where you want to go. Lesson number 3 is that competition is irrelevant if you're just being you. Now, this lesson has been such a game changer for me. I remember in the old days when I first started working for myself, I would look around the industries and I will always see competitors that I consider to be competitors and actually comparing myself to what they're working on and feeling inadequate all the time. When you hit this rabbit hole of comparisonitis, as I like to call it, which is basically a disease of comparing yourself all the time to others, it will really hit your confidence and make you doubt on what you're working on. And it can hit you really hard, especially on social media, if you're not careful about it. There's actually a very famous quote that said, the reason we struggle with insecurity is because we compare our behind the scenes with someone else's highlight reel. So here's the thing. What you're seeing on social media and elsewhere that someone else, a competitor, for example, might be sharing is not always the reality. Now, I'm very careful about what I share on social media, especially because I'm a mother running multiple projects and also taking care of my toddler daughter at the same time, because that's part of my life. I want people to see that it's not always magically smooth sailing. And I don't want others in my community who might also be young mothers doing their own passions and working on their own passions and doing multiple things to feel like they have to be insecure and fulfill this perfection facade. And it's very easy to get distracted when you're looking across, let's say on social media or elsewhere that they might be sharing. It feels like there's this shiny object syndrome, right? Where you want to try all the new things that everyone else is doing and doing all the things that you consider to be necessary to actually stand out, but never feeling like you're enough or that you're actually doing enough in your business, in your life to move yourself forward. And what I ultimately learned in my 20s is that it's not the competitions that you should be bothered by or scared of or even comparing with. It's actually yourself that you should be comparing with every single day on how to get better, how to improve your own processes, your own routines. And that's where the real results happen. And ultimately, we should all be more original. And what I love about it is that you don't need to compete with your competitors, because ultimately, if you're doing that, then you're just doing the same thing as them. You should actually learn how to love what you're doing and create something that's original to you, a method, a system, whatever it might be, that makes you stand out in your industry, because no one else can do it the way you do it, right? And I always ask myself this question every single day at the end of the day: how can I do tomorrow better than today? That's what you should be thinking about, is how do you compare yourself of today to yesterday and to tomorrow? So lesson number 4 is invest early. If not, invest now. This is definitely not financial advice by any means. This is purely from my personal experience. Just want to caveat that. So what I learned early in my career, especially when I was working in banking and finance, is that money is an asset that can be used to grow over time. So instead of actually going to something risky, which I didn't, let's say day trading or spread betting, what I've done is actually just on a monthly basis, put aside a portion of my savings into an investment vehicle. So at the time, and still do now, as a portion of it, into my stock and shares ISA here in the UK, but you also have something like this elsewhere in the world as well. Now, these are all very boring and vanilla, steady Eddie investments that doesn't move very much on a monthly basis. So if you're looking for a get-rich-quick scheme, this is not it. However, what it does do is that it compounds slowly over time. And because I invested early on in my career, what I really benefit from was that long investment time horizon, as they call it. And I remember I used to save up my lunch money. So I could then save that, let's say, £5 or £7 per day that I would be usually spending on lunches by cooking from home and bring them in. And then I would use that money to put into my savings account, also my investments later on. So all of these little tiny things that happened every single day really contributed to a lot more financial upside later on. And I was able to buy our first place here in London, and also later on be able to switch jobs and careers without having to worry, or step into my own consulting business without having to worry about the financial downside from that short-term shift as well. And one of the book here that I want to mention is The Millionaire Mindset by T. Harv Eker, which I read in my 20s. And what he said in the book, which is really fundamental and shifted my whole mindset on savings and investments and financial wealth in general. And in there, he explained that we can all slowly increase our wealth by cutting back the spending that's not needed on a daily basis. So now, after doing this for more than a decade, I'm happy to say that my investments are actually a big portion of my income streams, just because of the fact that I started so early on and wanted to invest in my own financial wealth over time, rather than actually using that to spend on things I never needed anyway in the long term. Whew, so we're down to the last lesson number 5, which is take care of your body and it will definitely take care of you. For me, health is probably my first wealth. So when I was in my 20s, my husband or boyfriend at the time finally decided to actually get married after 8 years of dating. So what I done is I found a dress on eBay, secondhand. It's a designer brand as well, but I got a huge bargain from it. Now, the only problem with that is that the dress is one size too small. So even after some alterations, I was thinking I need to get into shape in order to fit into the dress. So this is where my fitness journey really started, and I signed up for the gym, started going regularly, and also going to boot camp classes, start eating more healthily. But what I realized over time is that despite I fulfilled my goal of fitting to the secondhand dress, which I saved so much money on, but also is that I was actually becoming healthier by doing all of these things. And by becoming healthier, I was more energized. I was able to take on more things. And I realized that the feeling of after a workout, let's say, the endorphins that you get, the amazing energy that you get to continue carrying on working on other projects and your career in your business is actually worth a lot more than just the fitness itself. So for me, getting into that dress was just the byproduct, right? Looking better was just the byproduct of ultimately becoming a better, healthier person. And I think, this is probably one of the things that we don't realize in our 20s until later on in life, is that what we do now, every single day for our health, is going to accumulate and compound. And ultimately, let's say 10 years later, now in my 30s, I'm so grateful for that healthy initiative that I took to be where I am today, where I don't have to worry too much about my own health, but rather just maintaining a healthier lifestyle to make sure that I'm living my best every single day for myself, for my family, and for my daughter. And I think without a healthy body and mind, we can't do our best work. And this is why I really hate the hustle culture, as I like to call it, that we have right now. So you can't really be your best self and do your best work if you're skipping sleep, if you're not eating well, and you're not exercising and working on your body. Because ultimately, all these things, when they might not seem so bad on a daily basis, they really eventually compound and can eat into your health in the long term. So be grateful for the body that you got, because it's the only one that you will get for your whole life. I hope that you found these 5 key lessons from my 20s helpful. Whether you're watching this in your 20s, in your 30s, 40s, or 50 plus, it doesn't really matter. I think age is just a number. I think these lessons apply to us all. And I'm reminding myself of this on a daily basis as well, even now in my 30s. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and make sure to share it with a friend so they can benefit from this as well. And let me know in the comments which one of these life lessons resonated with you. And also, if you have any more lessons you want to share with me as well. I look forward to hearing from you. In the meantime, have a wonderful week, and I'll see you next time.